Learning how to decode the signals that your nervous system sends your mind and your body is the key to unlocking your greatest success. So, we can't talk about nervous system regulation without talking about everybody's favorite collective freakout, the pandemic. So, before the pandemic, I had been teaching yoga for about 5 years. And during that time, everything in the yoga world was all about intensity. The competition within the industry was whose classes were the hardest. People wanted to feel like they were being challenged. That was the goal. And if you weren't providing an experience that pushed people, they didn't feel like they were getting something out of it. And I think that's really reflective of where we were as a culture before the pandemic. So we were very much in this masculine state where everything was all about driving forward towards output. What could you produce and how quickly can you produce it? And you can look at just the types of experiences that people were seeking out before the pandemic, the way that the music industry was changing, like this, electronic music was becoming this mainstream, very popular music, and these festivals were all about like the biggest lights, the craziest light shows, the loudest music, the loudest speakers, the biggest groups of people, the colors, everything. And it was just like this, very overwhelming stimulation of the nervous system. And I think that a lot of that was like this very loud distraction, like form of distraction, right? And I think that it's important for us to acknowledge as we talk about the nervous system, the mirror reflection of the micro versus the macro, right? So, as a collective, as a society, we were kind of on this train that was going full speed ahead to who knows where. And so much of it was about distracting ourselves from these issues, greater issues within our collective that were bubbling to the surface that we weren't quite ready to acknowledge or to look at, right? So then we're suddenly forced into this great shutdown, right? And within this collective shutdown, that's when the cracks started to show, right? And that's when we were kind of started to be forced to look at the things that we collectively had been resisting looking at. And this collective experience is very similar to the individual experience of a dark night of the soul. And I actually did a video on Dark Night of the Soul. I'll link that. It's a great video if you want to understand that kind of spiritual awakening process a little bit deeper. But it's like when you go into Dark Night of the Soul, it's like a forced pause in a way, and everything starts to crumble, and you go into this deep shadow work. And towards the end of the process of shadow work, you have to then learn how to re-regulate the nervous system, because what you're doing is you are preparing your body, your vessel, your being to hold and to embody a higher frequency, right? A new frequency. And so that's where this process of nervous system work becomes really important. And I think that, eventually as a collective, we are, building towards coming into that on a larger scale. Right now, we're kind of collectively in this like breakdown shadow work, you know, part. But as individuals, and I think probably if you are here watching this video, you've probably done your own deep shadow work. And that's why you are here, is to kind of be this leading force of bringing in the new, higher, more peaceful, loving energies to this planet, right? And so we have this collective freak out. We have this massive activation of the collective nervous system. And we're given this moment of shutdown, this moment of pause that changed the collective perspective, right? And on an individual level, it gave us kind of this opportunity to decide what we were going to make of that moment. And I think that a lot of people clung to distraction, right? They clung to, whatever they could to kind of get through what was happening, to resist what was happening. But for many of us, we took that moment of pause to kind of reimagine the ways in which we move through the world. So for me personally, that moment in time, that experience of things shutting down and getting a moment to reset, it made me realize that I don't want to function, you know, in this very masculine, full speed ahead, how fast can you produce sort of way. It's a very antithetical to my nature. I am much more of a slow moving, slow burn kind of a person. I love to take my time. I love to not be rushed. I love to put thought into the things that I do before I build them, right? And this is kind of this through the pandemic, through the shutdown, was like this awakening of the divine feminine. And that's what feminine energy is, right? It's like being open, being receptive, being present, being still. And I like to think of this, I like to think of the analogy, if you were, let's say that you were playing catch with someone, right? And they're trying to throw a ball to you, but you can't catch the ball because you just keep throwing balls at them, right? And they can't even barely get the ball over to you because you just keep pummeling them. It's like that is like, the polarity of masculine and feminine, right? In order to let the ball be thrown back to you and for you to catch it, there's got to be that space, right? You got to stop being the output. You've got to stop being the one throwing the balls, right? And I think that we all had been so caught up in this way of living in which we were all trying to throw the ball all the time. And I think a lot of us, through this softening into this great shutdown and this great reset, we were able to start catching again, to kind of like give the space to receive and to be in that receptive energy. And so as I've been teaching post pandemic, that's like really been my goal, has been to just hold space for people to calm and regulate the nervous system, to learn how to do that. And the first step in learning how to calm and regulate the nervous system is learning what it means to be in a state of conscious observation. So, conscious observation is recognizing that you are the witness, the watcher of your own experience. So, if you give yourself the chance, whether it's through meditation, whether it's through a yoga practice, whatever it is that works for you, that gives you the time and the space to just witness the mind, witness your thoughts, right? So we have what yogis call like the monkey mind or the chatter of the mind. And a lot of people just have this constant chatter that is overtaking their mental space, right? If you can sit back and just watch those thoughts and recognize that you are not the thoughts, that you are the seer of the thoughts, once you're able to come into that realization, you're able to create greater space between yourself and your thoughts. So if you are operating from a place where you think you are your thoughts and your thoughts are calling the shots, it's like, of course, like if a thought comes in that upsets you, you're going to be upset. There's going to be that natural reaction to that, right? But if we can create space between the self and the thoughts, and we can start to decide that thought no longer serves me, this is where we're starting to move the cart out of the deep grooves that like, let's think of like the mind as like a road that, maybe it rained and the road got muddy and you drove a cart down the road and it made these deep indentations, right? And so now every time the cart goes down the road, it just goes right back into those indentations. And that's the way that your mind and your nervous system are operating without consciousness, right? So like if you are not observing the thoughts and you're not taking the time to just, decide if something serves you or it doesn't anymore, then that cart is just going to go right back into those grooves. The thought's going to come in, the body, the mind are going to respond the way that they always do. This process of consciously observing and choosing a new thought, choosing a new reaction, is moving the cart out of those grooves and onto a smoother path, right? And so when we understand the concept of conscious observation, it's like putting your conscious self into the driver's seat of your life and of your experience that you're having here in your body and your mind right now. And so if we can practice conscious observation, and that's what I think that your yoga practice, if you're not rushing and racing through it, but you're actually giving yourself the space to like repeat actions that you've repeated many times over, and sitting in them, right? So like getting into a position that you've done many many times and just holding it and just seeing like, okay, how is my body feeling today? How is my body responding to this action today versus yesterday? Or how is my mind responding when I'm being asked to kind of really sit with something and to feel more deeply into this moment? Is there resistance in that? It's like that's something that I ask my students a lot when we do spend some time moving slower through things. It's like, what is that resistance? Is there resistance to just being still? And many people do struggle with that, like just struggling with just being still with the self. And that is a great practice actually in getting in touch with the nervous system. Is, can you just sit without stimulation? Like, can you just sit in silence? How long can you sit in silence for? Like, I think that's something that was like a TikTok trend, that young kids were like, finding novelty in this concept of like de-stimulating yourself and just sitting in silence. And these younger generations, like, that were born into a life with phones and the internet and all this stuff, it's like that is a novel concept to them in a way, but it's like such an important, invaluable practice, whether it's going out into nature and grounding yourself, connecting your body, your being, your vessel to the natural frequency of the earth, whether it's just setting limits on how much you're consuming, how much you're scrolling, and noticing how those actions are affecting you, right? So again, this is inviting in that concept of conscious observation. So we start to notice the ways that certain behaviors, certain actions that we're doing, the ways that they affect us, right? So what exactly is the nervous system? It's like this network of sensors that are constantly feeding information to the mind and to the body. And so if we are always, constantly responding in from this like fight or flight place where we're perpetuating the same nervous system responses that we've been, you know, programmed to do since we were a small child, then we're always going to kind of have the same response to things until we address the way, what our nervous system is trying to communicate to us. So why is it that we respond from a place of feeling unsafe, even if you're not unsafe, right? And maybe there's something within you that needs to be seen, like a pattern that's being perpetuated. And sometimes this is just even like the body's reaction to something. So noticing when you feel tension, when you feel yourself close. Like, I even start to notice like situations in which I feel really compelled to cross my arms across my body, because that in and of itself is like I'm self-protecting in some way. And so I just like to notice like, okay, what's causing me to want to self-protect, as opposed to allowing myself to just be open, right? And the body is such like an advanced technology. The body is always wanting to be in communication with us. And again, a super powerful part of having a practice like a yoga practice is that opportunity to listen to what the body is communicating to you. And this goes hand in hand with the practice of quieting the mind, right? So if we've learned how to become the witness, and we've learned how to create space between the self and the thoughts, and we've learned to quiet the mind, we can then bring the awareness into the body and tune into the body and see what the body is wanting us to know, to feel, to work through, right? And so if we're able to move past that noise of the mind, then the awareness can go deeper, and we can tune in and listen to what the body is telling us. And if you do suffer with dis-ease, right? Like even just that word in and of itself, dis-ease, we are out of ease. We are, you know, struggling in some capacity to be at peace within the self. And so if you are struggling with dis-ease, or you are struggling with pain in the body, sit with it, invite in the answers, invite in wisdom, and let yourself receive, let yourself hold the space for those answers to come to you, maybe in unconventional ways, right? Again, where the world is constantly putting this immense pressure on us to move quickly, to have the answers fast, to know everything now, to be in this race to the finish line of who knows what. It's like everybody's just in this massive race to get somewhere, when really the only place that you ever actually are is here now in this moment. And so part of understanding how to regulate the nervous system is learning how to be deeply present, how to be comfortable in the now, right? Because so much of like that stimulation and that pressure and that go, go, go way in which society pressures us to live is removing us from the now, right? And so learning how to come back to a more grounded, present, soft space within the self, right? And practicing, inviting in practices that bring you peace. So maybe for some people that's, doing breath work, breathing. Maybe for some people it's meditation, it's listening to calming music, taking a bath, drinking tea. Like there's so many ways to practice being calm, being still, however that resonates for you, like whatever it is that works for you to come back to that space of calm and peace within the self. So, if you have any questions on that, please do let me know. And I'm sure that this is a topic that I'll be talking about more in the future. But I think that I'm going to leave that there for today. And I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. And I'll talk with you again soon.